Why would we talk about Dr. Fuckhead? Well, because Dr. Fuckhead has new things to talk about. We've got multiple stories. He's still fucking dogs' heads, Noski. Yeah, he is. Yeah. Well, he's not in the position anymore, but the things that he put in place are still happening, so that's why it's news. We have this one. This is from yesterday. So Dr. Fauci directed colleagues to destroy federal records, then denied it under oath. Why is this a story? Well, it's being confirmed. What we already knew is now being confirmed. Senator Rand Paul, a Republican of Kentucky, released emails revealing Dr. Fauci directed colleagues to delete emails and records despite denying he did so under oath. Quote, newly released emails show Fauci directed colleagues to delete quote, newly released emails show Fauci directed colleagues to, quote, again, quote, delete this after you read it, unquote, dating back to September 20th, September? Oh, God, I can't read today. Anyway, Senator Rand Paul said he denied it under oath. These documents are now public, and Fauci will testify before Chairman Rand Paul. So, did he get pardoned for this? Like, because he was retroactively pardoned, right? He lied under oath in 2020. Does this get included under his pardon now? Well, I wonder. Fauci instructed his colleagues at the NIH to delete his email addressing the soaring death rate in New York City. Call me, quote, full of shit, unquote. Spin the numbers and order your staff to, quote, delete this after you read it, unquote. And then here's a tweet from Senator Rand Paul. Let's move it over here. Freshly released emails expose another layoff of the Fauci COVID cover-up. Oh, sorry, layer. I can't read today. In April 2020, his staff flagged my post on New York City's soaring death rate. Fauci's reply, call me full of shit, spin the numbers, and order your staff to delete this after you read it. He knew the reckoning was eventually coming. So what's this email? He has this email from Anthony Fauci, NIH, NIAID, and he said here, so he's emailing Greg. So Greg, as usual, he's full of ish. Mark Meadows curiously had the same response and was upset when I said that New York got things right by finally getting the numbers down and successfully began opening up. I will paste in a note I sent to Mark. Quote, I am sorry, Mark. I do not think you are missing anything, and I understand what you are saying, but I guess we are just looking at this from different perspectives. New York certainly made mistakes, but we learned a lot from the difficult experiences that they went through that hopefully benefited cities and states that subsequently got hit. I am just talking about the fact that they got the numbers down, and now they seem to be opening safely and successfully. Also, please forgive me because I am not trying to be contrary, but let us look at the numbers. The New York metropolitan area has a population of 20.3 million with 32,000 deaths. The death rate of the population level is 0.0016. Miami-Dade County is a population of 2,700,000 with 5,000 deaths. The death rate at the population is 0.0018, and they are not out of it yet. And so, in a population level, Florida may ultimately turn out to be too different from New York. I do not want to engage anymore with this nonsense, and so please delete this email after you read it. Thanks. Wow. So that's crazy. And what is what is Senator Rand Paul here? Paging Dr. Fauci, according to JHU, New York's per capita death rate is more than 2 times greater than Italy, Spain, and Britain, and more than 8 times worse than Florida and 10 times worse than Texas. For you to say New York got it done correctly disregards the facts and calls your judgment into question. So what this email says here is Dr. Fauci is acknowledging that not only was the death rate really low, but it was low in Florida and it was low in New York. Even though both of them had different approaches to the situation, they ended up with about the same death rate. Crazy how that works. Can we safely say the vaccine did fucking nothing then? That's what I'm getting from this, is the vaccine literally didn't make a difference. Then again, Florida is a retirement state. Maybe a lot of them got vaccinated. The cover-up began while the virus was barely on America's radar. Just one day after the February 1st, 2020 proximal origins call, Fauci, Francis Collins, and Jeremy Farrar plotted to how to get ahead of science and the narrative under the World Health Organization. And then it, quote, says, please delete after you read it. So Dr. Fauci was actively trying to cover this stuff up. He's repeatedly lied under oath to congressional investigators about COVID and the gain-of-function research in the Wuhan lab. Dr. Fauci was under oath when speaking with Senator Rand Paul in 2021 when he denied that the NIH funded the gain-of-function research in Wuhan. Well, we did, and he authorized it, and he was doing all sorts of other things that he shouldn't have been doing. For example, let's move over here. I'm not going to read your guys' chats because I'm assuming you're talking crap about me not being able to read. NIH renews. Guys, this is from April 2025. The end of April. The NIH renews massive funding for Fauci's infamously cruel Monkey Island. Monkey Island is such a pleasant way to put what is dubbed maximum pain experiments. Torturing these poor animals in the name of science. And we fund it. The money the government takes from you every time you go buy something, every time you work, every time you do anything, every time you make a transaction in this country, that little bit of money they take, some of it could be going to this. Our money is going towards the death and torture of animals. For what? For what? The National Institutes of Health just renewed the funding for Dr. Anthony Fauci's infamously cruel Monkey Island. I refuse to call it Monkey Island. Infamously cruel maximum pain experiments on Monkey Island off the coast of South Carolina. The Trump administration has been working to clean up Joe Biden and Fauci's wasteful spending and funding of barbaric and outdated animal testing, but it seems that holdovers from the previous administration have other plans. According to the transaction history, the NIH will potentially award Alpha Genesis a total of $26.9 million of taxpayer funds to maintain the island. Managing the island has cost Americans more than $66 million to date. Nearly $70 million to torture monkeys. Johnny Hurst, getting monkeys hooked on drugs in America was clearly too boring, so the NIH went ape abroad. It paid Chinese labs to conduct experimental drug tests on monkeys. Finally, we get to Dr. Fauci's funky Monkey Island. Since 1979, Dr. Fauci's NIH division has maintained an island that currently houses, today, this is in 2020, the end of 2024, as of 2024, the end of 2024, over 3,000, almost 3,400 monkeys for use in taxpayer-funded experiments. Managing the island has just cost more than $66 million to date, adjusted for inflation. In 2021, White Coat Waste, a watchdog organization working to end cruel and unnecessary taxpayer-funded animal experimentation, exposed how Monkey Island confines over 3,300 primates who are bred and then shipped to labs for deadly and horrific maximum pain research. That's what it's actually called. That's what they should call it in the article. That's what everyone should refer to it as. Because that's what the NIH themselves refer to. When the NIH refers to this project, they do not refer to it as Monkey Island. They refer to it as the maximum pain experiments, where they clip the ends of fingers and toes off of monkeys. They freeze body parts. They inject them with all sorts of different viruses and vaccines for testing to see what happens and to see how long they'll live after. Torture. Pure, utter torture, and the sick, demonic people at the hands of this should be arrested. I don't care if our government sanctioned it. We didn't care when we put those Nazis on trial. We shouldn't care now. Just following orders isn't a good enough excuse for something so fucking sick and demented as this. In a statement about the funding, WCW President Anthony Bellotti told Gateway Pundit, quote, as the watchdog that first exposed Fauci's funding at the Wuhan lab, beagle abuse, Monkey Island, and transgendered animal experiments. Yeah, that's another one. That's another one.
Where's my money, bitch?
Thank you, Chris. Send another dollar rumble rant. That's awesome. We're breeding and shipping them in, so much better that way. I nominate F Head and his staff for residency on that island. Yeah, it's so much better because we're shipping them from out of the country, right? Well, we'll get there, Chris, because not all the experimented animals come from out of the country. We some of them we breed here at home to then torture. But yeah, transgender animal experiments as well as the beagle abuse. If you don't know about that, we're gonna get to that in just a moment. We're alarmed that NIH just renewed millions more from the Biden-Fauci era animal abuse. President Trump's message is crystal clear: cut NIH wasteful spending. But Dr. Jay Bhattacharya and the NIH staff either didn't get Trump's memo or they're just ignoring it. Instead, Biden-Fauci holdovers at the NIH are planning to open a new big government department in the Beltway. They're renewing Fauci payments to animal labs where beagles are eaten alive by insects. And they're promoting Fauci's top lieutenants who champion gain of function. Just yesterday, they unveiled a foolish spending policy on alternatives that indistinguishable from that of the Biden-Fauci NIH, one that won't hold Fauci accountable or save any animals in the labs. NIH's bureaucrats are undermining President Trump. More bureaucracy won't save beagles, and it won't make America greater for animals. The solution is simple. Stop the money. Stop the madness. An estimated 500 to 600 monkeys are taken from the island each year and sent to NIH and other government labs where they're infected with viruses, mutilated, and killed. The Post and the Courier reported this week, quote, about 500 primates, each bearing a numeric chest tattoo, are trapped every year, buried to the mainland, and trucked to federal laboratories. There, they may be sacrificed to develop vaccines, pharmaceuticals, and medical devices. They've been called a vital part of national security, and the federal government pays about $4 million a year to keep an ample supply. The monkey colony stayed over the objections of federal officials and conservationists. It became, in the words of one top former state official, a performing asset that generated lease money used to fund other programs and salaries. A 2018 NIAID paper described the development of the deadly Crimea Congo hemorrhage fever in monkeys taken from the island in very graphic detail. White Coat Waste provided Gateway Pundit with a photo of one of the monkeys that was infected with the virus. They purposefully infected the monkey with this virus to see how they may be able to treat it or just to see what happens. The agency used 15 rhesus and African green monkeys for the pilot study. In the main study, they used a dozen macaque monkeys who were injected with the painful virus and killed on the 7th day of the test. The primates from the island have also been used for testing related to AIDS, polio, even bioterrorism. Only researchers and officials are allowed on the secretive island, which sits at, and then it gives the coordinates. I wasn't expecting them to give coordinates of the island. Jeez, okay, Gateway Pundit. The public is banned from entering, however. Let's see. WCW also obtained video through a FOIA lawsuit against the NIH, revealing how the Rocky Mountain Lab in Montana tortures monkeys it receives from the island in Ebola and COVID experiments. This is torture, guys. What are we gaining from this? What do we have to gain from these experiments? The NIH is paying $22.8 million in taxpayer funds to Alpha Genesis, the company with the NIAID contract to manage the island. This is the same company that let 43 monkeys escape from its South Carolina lab last year. Yeah, I hope they don't find those monkeys. But we're going to move on to this other story, because like Chris was talking about, hey guys, notorious beagle breeder that supplies the Fauci-funded labs was hit with over 300 violations. A notorious Wisconsin beagle breeder at the center of taxpayer-funded puppy mill horrors has been exposed and slammed with more than 300 violations, drawing a potential $55,000 fine as investigations continue. $55,000 is not enough for the torture they're putting these puppies through. For those of you that don't know, this is a separate experiment that the NIH conducts in which they allow flesh-eating insects to eat the heads of beagle puppies. For what reason? I don't know. Frankly, I don't give a fuck. You could be looking for a cure for cancer. I don't give a shit. That's demonic. This troubling development comes amid growing scrutiny of how this breeder supplies dogs to the government-supported research labs, including those funded by Dr. Anthony Fauci. According to a report by WMTV, Wrigley's Farms facility was cited by the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection for a staggering 308 infractions related to the mistreating dogs and performing unauthorized surgeries without anesthesia. Performing surgeries on puppies and dogs without anesthesia, leading to a hefty penalty as authorities moved to crack down on the horrifying conditions over which 3,000 dogs were housed in filthy wire cages. The White Coat Waste Project, a watchdog group, has uncovered that the breeder is supplying beagles to labs conducting painful experiments funded by the National Institute of Health, including ongoing tests initiated by Dr. Fauci. Quote, they're born to die. White Coat Waste Project obtained records showing a beagle breeder accused of criminal cruelty that sold puppies to Fauci-funded labs, then infested them with ticks and poisoned them with experimental drugs. In some of the painful tests, dogs were denied any relief. According to documents by the White Coat Waste Project through state and federal open records request, beagle puppies from Wrigley are currently being used in painful tick bite experiments at the University of Missouri, in which their pain and suffering is intentionally left untreated. The Gateway Pundit reported about the recent renewal of the lab's NIH funding. Additionally, dogs from Ridgland, however the fuck you say it, have been infected with viruses and injected with the experimental drugs and experiments backed by other U.S. federal agencies, including the National Science Foundation and the Department of Agriculture. Currently, a special prosecutor in Wisconsin is determining whether to charge Wrigley with violations of the state's animal cruelty laws. Why does there even need to be a discussion? Does there need to be a discussion about that? Regardless of what these people are doing to the puppies while they're in their care, they should be sued and charged for violations of animal cruelty for the fact that they've been selling them to the government for torture. In a statement to the Gateway Pundit, White Coat Waste Senior Vice President Justin Goodman said taxpayers shouldn't be forced to fund puppy profiteers that abuse beagles and break the law. We're working with Congress to ensure not another dime is wasted on cruel and outdated experiments on dogs or spent to subsidize these despicable breeding operations. Guys, I mean, you cannot hate our government enough. You cannot hate Dr. Fauci himself enough. Dr. Fauci alone is responsible for so many demonic and disgusting things in this country. Do we want the world to see this? Do we want the world to know that we torture beagle puppies? Do we want the world to know that we will put monkeys through unimaginable pain for our own research? Sure, these other countries do things far worse than us, but we need to be the example. We should be the example for the world to follow. We should not allow these things to happen. There needs to be a discussion on which prison to send them to for testing on them. Absolutely. That's the only discussion that should ensue. Yeah, I'm with Bach on this one. Dox the puppy mills, please. Well, you don't have to. They've already named it. Here, if you want to know the name of the facility where these puppies are brought from, it's Wrigley Farms. Wrigley Farms is responsible for these beagle puppies being tortured, having surgery without anesthesia, being injected with all sorts of different things that should never be in their bodies. And then let's say none of that happens to them, and they're one of the lucky ones that don't get tortured by the puppy mill they were born in. They're then sent off to be eaten alive or have ticks and other things happen to them by the government. Disgusting. Disgusting, disgusting. That shouldn't be a question because they should be I mean, Yeah, even though it's animals, like I said, the Nazis didn't get any leeway. It is not good enough to just say that you were just following your job. It is not good enough to just say you were following orders. If you were there on the other side of the needle while you're injecting it into that innocent puppy, there's no excuse for you. There's no excuse. You could have just denied the job. You didn't have to work that job. You didn't have someone with a gun to your head saying, inject the puppy or you die. Disgusting. We already read that one. Let's see. I think this is a similar story. Okay, yeah, this is similar. Okay, yeah, we already went over this. I had another article. It's just going over the Monkey Island stuff being funded yet again. It looks like... Okay, wait, no, this is a different one. House Appropriations Committee targets Fauci's taxpayer-funded Monkey Island and the FY26 NIH spending bill. The move comes after years of investigations by the White Coat Waste Project. Guys, I don't know who they are, but they seems like they're the one getting all this information out, so good on them. The coverage by the Gateway Pundit, which has exposed the secretive South Carolina primate colony as a multi-million-dollar industry involving horrific experiments on thousands of monkeys. I hope they get the funding pulled, and I hope all of these sick fucks spend the rest of their lives in prison, if not publicly executed. I advocate for capital punishment for those that are irredeemable. I do not advocate for violence. I do not advocate for murder. I advocate for the removal of people that cannot remain in polite society. That's what I advocate for. That's not being violent. I advocate for the removal of those that are violent.